What's something only done by poor people and very rich people? Higher likelihood of becoming drug addicts. Yes, but when poor people do drugs, it's a crime. And when rich people do drugs, it's a scandal. When rich people do it, it's a private health issue. Rich get rehab, poor get jailed. Edit. After reading the comments below. Rich get rehab, poor get disposed. Every trust fund kid I knew in college had a crippling drug habit and about half a dozen dealers on his phone. I always wondered if they just found each other because of money and caused the problem, or if Borden was seeking out an escape. The trust fund kids who are doing well are the ones who aren't telling you that they're trust fund kids. That's typically highly guarded information. Good point. It's the ones who flaunted it that seem to fit the profile. It's definitely a sampling bias issue. The richest kids I've ever known protected that info like crazy, even from a young age. The biggest hint is they usually go on big vacations, the varied destinations. Yep. I knew a girl in middle school whose father was somebody important in Russia. She didn't know the English word for it, but there were a bunch of photos of him and Putin before he very suddenly moved the family to America. Anyway, she did try to hide that she was rich, but she was like 12, so she wasn't good at it yet. Like, she mentioned that she only drinks Fiji water in Russia, and she'd buy like $50 of sushi for lunch and then eat almost none of it. The only people who eat like that are the ones who afford it. Rich people are usually embarrassed by it, or they don't want to be treated differently, so they try to keep it on the down low. Like how the super rich don't wear designer clothes. They instead have a personal tailor who makes all of their clothes custom. No tags, no brands, just very high-quality unbranded clothes. The exception is if you're like a Hunter Biden or Eric Trump type. You know, the screw-up with a rich or famous dad. Then you use your family name constantly to get out of trouble. The openly rich kids who loved cocaine were the latter kind. We also have to remember that being extremely rich, but having nothing to do with that money, may also cause a lot of anxiety and sadness. They flaunt money to hide their insecurities about not having made any of it, and drugs are the ultimate escape method. And some of them flaunt money just because they're bad people and druggies. That happens too. Driving really old cars. Drinking alcohol at noon. Also, owning multiple cars. Rich because they can. Poor because their newer car can still break down any day and the old one isn't that broken yet, so it's a backup or parts car. Mainly a rural thing, as land is cheap and you're allowed to have a rusting car on your lawn. Yup, family friend of ours has 3 minivans for this exact reason. He's got the newer, good one, the backup one for if the newer one goes in the shop, and the parts one. My dad had 2 Datsun B210S. Same year, same color, only one set of plates. One would break down, he switched the plates to the other and drive it till he worked on the other enough to get it running again. Your dad has a plan and is making it work. That's awesome. Growing up, we weren't particularly working class, but we weren't particularly middle class either. We had that sort of in-between thing. We weren't posh, we weren't poor, which basically in Ireland meant we didn't own a horse. That's how it works in Ireland. Maybe your dad's a doctor, your mother's a lawyer, you've got a big house, bit of land, you can own a horse. Or if there's 10 of you living in a caravan, all of you on the dole, you can own a horse. Anywhere in between. No horse for you. You get a dog. Sorry about that. Ed Byrne, different class. This is true, though not just in Ireland. I went to both a rural working class high school and a private school. At the rural working class high school, we had a horse parking lot because kids were riding horses to school because they couldn't pay for gas, so there was a horse shelter, and you could go out and take care of your horse during school. At the private school, they were like, my eventing horse or my polo horse, so the horses just sat out tied up all day. Or was it an enclosed area? A stable? It was a whole structure, like stables but not with individual stalls, with some grouping. The school had a whole lot of agricultural stuff going on, like construction or greenhouses, to learn how to grow tomatoes. Are horses really that much less expensive than gas for a car? I feel like caring for a horse can get really pricey, but I have no frame of reference. Depends if you've already got the horse or not. Speaking from experience, though, a lot of rural families are either very bad at managing their expenses or have very different priorities than the average person. In the UK, there is a conception of you versus no you English. The emerging middle class in the 1950s used words that they considered posher than the words that the working class used, such as greens instead of vegetables, preserve instead of jam, and wealthy instead of rich. This was essentially a way to display your new wealth and refinement compared to the working class. However, the upper class were already rich and didn't feel the need to outwardly display their social dominance and position in society, so stuck with the same words that the working classes used. This is less true nowadays, but can still be seen. It's pronounced buokai. This is a reference to the British sitcom Keeping Up Appearances about a middle-aged couple named Mr. and Mrs. Bucket. While the Buckets are decidedly middle class, Mrs. Bucket is a ferocious social climber who is absolutely desperate to appear to be far greater and grander than she actually is. A running gag on the show is her absolute insistence that her surname is pronounced Buquet. You are all now in the loop. One of my favorite moments was when she got very frustrated and said Richard Bucket. One of my favorites is when she has Richard climb a tree to look for Iron Age mounds and depressions, and she's talking to him. But then someone comes along and it looks like she's talking to a tree. Also like how only poor and rich have the really stupid nicknames. Middle class and upper class types can both be named Guy Namington, third but only the upper class guy is being called Boo Boo by his family even as an adult. That's a complex one. Pudding and dessert were different foods that had a divide along class lines that turned into a geographical divide, and both words became to refer to the same thing, much like the dinner or tea divide. Puddings were a dish that starts with an unset mix containing high amounts of fat, usually suet or from meat content, that would be cooked till set, usually by boiling or steaming. Yorkshire pudding is a pudding because it's traditionally made with fat drippings in batter, for example. Christmas pudding, steamed puddings, sticky toffee, spotted dick, etc., steak and kidney pudding, black pudding, etc., etc. They're all liquid mixes that use suet, well, black pudding uses a variety of fats, to be set during boiling or steaming. These are usually foods that are on the cheaper side of things, especially when it comes to sweet puddings that one would have after dinner. Pudding and dessert not only have a bit of a class divide with dessert being considered broadly posher, but also a regional divide in traditionally very working class and industry-heavy, coal mining, steelwork, shipyards, etc., areas predominantly using pudding. I grew up in Kent, which is dessert the entire way unless your dad moved to Kent to work in the mines or work the docks. See also, muffins, cake, bun. All can be used to refer to either sweet cake-type dishes or regular bread depending on where you are. Please like and subscribe for more daily content. I upload videos daily. You are also welcome to check out some of my other videos. Thanks for watching.